Hey, my name's Chris, if we've never met, and I'm glad you're here. Now, I was thinking about it. You're probably here for one of three reasons. I lumped you into one of three groups. Number one, you're here because it's Sunday morning, and this is what you do. Like, you wake up, you come to church, you live in this house, you're here, and I'm glad you're here. Second group, some of you made some like New Year's resolutions. One of those was, hey, need to start going to church more. Congratulations, one down, 51 more to go. 51 more, you're 100%. I mean, pat yourself, that's good. And then the third group, some of you made some promises to God during the second overtime of Monday night's game. And you're making good on that. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you're here. This is good. And so, you're going to make some promises tomorrow night's game. You're going to say some prayers. And, if Georgia winning the national championship gets you back in church, man, I'm happy about that. Happy about that. Oh, my goodness. All right, well, I have four kids, and three of them, their birthdays fall within 2 weeks of each other. So it's a very expensive time during our household, and it leads up right before Christmas. So Christmas, it's even more, it is expensive. But end of October, first part of November, our oldest three's birthdays fall within 2 weeks. And so this year, Brianna and I decided to get them a group gift. Usually we don't. We usually kind of individually. We decided to get them a group gift. And we bought them, some people call it vintage. I call it awesome. But it is a Super Nintendo gaming system. Super Nintendo gaming. It's about a 30-year-old gaming system that I grew up playing, that I loved, Brianna loved. And we bought it for our kids. And they're new. They come preloaded with all the great games. Street Fighter, Contra, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario, all that stuff. And my kids were like, it's okay. We wanted an Xbox. I'm like, no, you want Super Nintendo. And so when they go to bed, Bria and I play it really late at night. And we do. It's a great date night. And I tell you that because on the Super Nintendo, I'm guessing the new fancy game system, I don't know, but on Super Nintendo, there's a power button, and then there's this magical button called the reset button. And anytime it's going bad, you push reset, boom, the screen goes back to its original screen, and you start over. I don't care what your score was, how many amount of lives you had or were losing. If you don't like it, reset, and it's like nothing ever happened. And I think for many of us, we wish that when the clock struck midnight on December 31st, that reset button got hit in our lives, and it's like 2017 never really happened. You wake up, and it's a brand new year, it's a brand new you, and you got to push the reset button. And the truth is, you know that you wake up on January 1st with the same problems and issues and with the same past that 2017 and 2016, the years before. You wake up, and yes, it's a new year, but the reset button wasn't pushed. And you and I both know that you cannot go back and change things from the past unless you have a DeLorean with a flux capacitor. Other than that, you can't go back. But you wake up and it's not a reset button, it's a new year, but it's the same past. And what happens so many times is that what has happened in our past, we allow to control our future. And not just shape it or inform it, but to literally control it. And it really doesn't matter either extreme of how your 2017 went, it can control it. Whether it was an awesome year or a year that you want to forget. So it doesn't really matter in your past, whether it's successes or failures, whether it's joy or pain, whether it's things that you're excited about that happened or that you regret or are shameful. Either extreme can control our future. And so on one side of the coin, you have a lot of hurt, or you have a lot of failures or regrets or things that you have done that you are ashamed of. Or maybe you've been hurt or had a lot of pain caused in your life from somebody else or another family member or a friend or a boss, or it's been years of hurt in the making, but you come from a place of hurt or shame or regret, and it's easy to allow that to control your future and allow that to control it with fear and paralysis. Well, I would do this, but I failed at it before, so I'm not going to. I would trust this person, but this person hurt me, lied to me, stabbed me in the back, so I'm not. And so what happens is all of that hurt and pain begins to come out in fear and really paralyzes us from moving forward and doing and trying new things. And then on the flip side of the coin, some of your 2017s, it was a banner year. You sold your company went public, you got into the school of your dreams, you got engaged. Something great happened, something wonderful happened, and it's easy now to allow that to set into your heart with pride and going, well, this is just the way it should always be. And when 2018 or 2019 doesn't work that way, you look back to the quote-unquote glory days. Oh my goodness, it was so great back. These were the good old days. You remember when that happened and you look back, you're not really moving forward because in your mind, it wasn't as good as it was back then 5, 10, 15 years ago. And you and I both know that the good old days seem way better than they actually were the farther away you get from it. And I know people like this, you know people like this. And there's nobody in this room, so you can relax, it's not you, but this would be the middle-aged man that still lives in his high school glory days. You know him too? Okay, good. This is the guy that's 40, married, 3 kids, got a mortgage payment, and all he talks about is his touchdown catch his senior year of high school. Right? Still wears his leather jacket, and you go, dude, that doesn't fit you anymore type deal. It's always the good old days, way back when you go, man, you've been married and 3 kids, certainly something awesome has happened in your life. And either extreme can control your life and my life if we allow it to come out, whether it's fear and paralysis or pride and looking back in the good old days, and the new days are never as good as the old days were. And we're going to talk about this idea, and there's just this one simple idea that we're going to talk about. One thing to grasp that if you would allow it to overlay into your life, whether it's your resolutions that you're trying to keep or your family or relationships or finances, if you could allow this one thing to overlay in your life and kind of live out in your world, 2018 could be very, very different than 2017. 2018 could be very, very different than 2017 if you would allow this one thing to seep into your heart, into your mind. Now, this one idea, this one principle we're talking about, you need to understand works whether you're a Christian or not. So I'm just going to take a guess that probably most in here would consider yourself Christians, followers of Jesus. But some of you may not be. Right? You're a little skeptical, you're agnostic, atheist, whatever. You're here. This principle that we're talking about, it works whether you follow Jesus or not. The only difference is the upside potential for Jesus followers. And so you're going to see this. It works for both to some point, but then for followers of Jesus, the upside, and it continues on and works longer than it does if you're not a Jesus follower, but it does work for both. If you got a Bible or a New Testament, I need you to grab it. Go to Philippians chapter 3, and it'll be up on the screens if you don't have one. Philippians chapter 3, and Philippians was written by a guy named Paul. And Paul had a very interesting past that he talks about here. And he's writing to this church of Philippi about 60, 61 AD. And he's writing from prison. All right, so this is where he's chained up and he's writing to the church at Philippi. And you're going to see he addresses some things going on happened in his past. An idea, something that happened to him because of Jesus, and then this one thing that he focuses on. Philippians chapter 3, we'll pick it up in verse 5. I was circumcised when I was 8 days old. I am a pure-blooded citizen of Israel and a member of the tribe of Benjamin, a real Hebrew if there ever was one. I was a member of the Pharisees who demanded the strictest obedience to the Jewish law. I was so zealous that I harshly persecuted the church, and as for righteousness, I obeyed the law without fault. And so Paul has a past that we all have, some things that he's proud of, some things that he's not proud of. Man, if I was a Hebrew, if there ever was one, I followed the law to the nth degree, but then on the flip side, he also had a past, albeit 30 years before this letter was written, but he had a past of persecution. He would still remember what the screams sounded like as people were tortured. He would know the sound that a rock makes when it's hurled at human flesh. Would still know the smell of blood as it poured out from Christians that he persecuted. This was his past. Things that he would be prideful of, things that he would be shameful of, like a past that we all have, things that we're prideful of, things that we're shameful of. But look at what his conclusion is, verse 7. He says, I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done. Yes, everything else is worthless when compared to the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For his sake, I have discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage, so that I could gain Christ. He has this epiphany as a Jesus follower going, man, that was what it was, but man, all of that, man, that's garbage and compared to the value of knowing or gaining Christ. But Paul would be like any of us in that the past would always want to come back and haunt him or change him or make him prideful. And he really concludes this one thing when it comes to his past and his future. Look at verse 12. He says, I don't mean to say that I have already achieved these things, that I have already reached perfection. He says, but I press on to possess that perfection for which Christ Jesus first possessed me. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not yet achieved it. But look what he says. He goes, but I focus on this one thing. I haven't achieved it, but here's the one thing that I focus, the one thing that I would love for you to grasp in your heart and mind. Here's what he says. Forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Paul has a past just like you and I have a past. Some things we're prideful of, some things that we're shameful of. He goes, but this one thing, I forget the past and I focus on the future. I'll rephrase it this way. Maybe you can grasp it better. Don't let what it was control what it could be. Don't let what it was, what 2017 was, control what 2018 could be. What your life was, control what your life could be. Your past may shape it, may guide it, may inform it, but don't let it control it. He goes, this one thing, it's very, very simple. I forget the past and I look forward to the future. Now, you're all very, very smart people. And you're going to hear that and you're going, I get that, Chris. One quick observation that he makes in there, it's really impossible to forget the past. Forget the past. Just forget the past. Forget like anybody going, that's impossible. In fact, Paul doesn't even forget the past. Like 5 verses earlier, he just recounted his past, did he not? Well, here's what I was like, and here's what I did. And now he's going, I forget the past. You're going, it's impossible to forget the past. Yes, it is in the sense of literally forgetting it, but what Paul really means, and that word forget, it really means to neglect or to put out of mind. To neglect or to put out of mind. You know that it happened, whether good or bad. You know that it's there, and maybe it guides or directs, but it does not control. And so, no, you cannot forget the things that happen. You cannot forget the failures. You cannot forget the successes, but you can keep them from controlling your next step. You can keep them from going, man, your best days are behind you. Go, no, my best days are in front of me. There were some good days back there. There were some also painful days, and man, they may shape or guide. I might move a little slower this time. I might have a bit more caution, or I might have a bit more confidence, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to control me with pride or paralysis. Because you forget the past, you neglect the past, you pay no attention. It was there, it was what it was. But it's not going to control what God is calling me to be. And I think all too often we continue to look back and we look back and we look back and go, what if this happens? What if this doesn't happen? Or these were the good old days. No. Those days were good, those days were bad, but the best days are ahead of you. And I just need you to know that as followers of Jesus, if you're going to gain Christ, to go after Christ, your best days are still ahead of you. And I remember growing up in high school. I don't know if you remember this in high school, but in high school, people would come talk to you, right? Sports teams, whatever, assemblies, people, motivational speakers, and they'd get up there. And I just remember, I heard this multiple times. The speaker would get up there, and they'd talk, and they would say this. They'd go, high schoolers, these are the greatest days of your life. Now, I was a weird high schooler, and I just thought to myself, seriously? Like this is as good as it gets. Like, this is as good as it gets. No, these are the best days. And I thought, pimples, taking tests, and scared to death to talk to girls. This is as good as he like it's downhill for me. I'm 17 years old. Like, that was my thought, all right? And I can tell you, they were wrong. So if you're a high schooler, those are not your best days. Your college days are not your best days. Man, as a follower of Jesus, your best days are the next days ahead of you. And hear me very, very, very carefully. Let me speak to those of you that your grandparents, you're senior citizens, all right? Grandparents or senior citizens. And it's so easy to go, well, you know, I've raised my kids or grandkids, and all my best days are mine. No, your best days are ahead of you. Don't ever forget this. Moses was 80 years old when he began to lead the children of Israel. Moses was 80 years old when he began his extent of leadership that we all know. Led them for the next 40 years till he was 120. So you're 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. You have so much wealth of wisdom. Man, you pour into people like me. You pour into the next generation. You've got purpose. The best days are not, but the best days are ahead of you. And that's what Paul's going, listen, the past, it was what it was. And I'm not going to let it control me. I'm not going to let it, paralyze me. It may guide or shape, but I'm moving forward. This one thing, he goes, I forget the past, and then he says, I reach forward, or I'm looking forward to what lies ahead. I'm looking forward to what lies ahead. Now, I'm guessing on January 1st, you woke up and you thought about 2018, some aspect of it. Well, I got to think about this, and so you're going, yeah, I'm looking forward to 2018. Whatever 2018 entails, I'm looking forward to. And it's a good thing to look forward to. But what he's talking about is so much richer and deeper than just looking forward to the next thing. What Paul is talking about, and that word looking forward, it would really mean to reach out or to stretch for. It's a way better meaning for that word. It means to reach out or to stretch for that very next thing. Because when you reach or you stretch for something, that's the thing that you focus on. And you don't allow the things to distract you. You certainly don't allow your past to control you because you're so busy reaching out and stretching forward to the very next thing. And that's what Paul's talking about. I've got a past. You've got a past. It's not going to be out of mind, but I neglect it. I don't focus. I don't think about it. And whatever the next thing God's calling me to, I reach out and I stretch for because when I do that, that is the one thing that I'm focusing on, not everything else. The best way I can illustrate this, and I experienced this in my life for 7 years. So up until about a year ago, for 7 years, I drove a Honda Accord. Now, Honda Accord, Prius, bicycle, kind of all the same thing, all right? It's all in the same category. So if you drive a Honda Accord, man, I'm with you, and you know this dilemma that I'm about to explain. I experienced this for 7 years driving this Honda Accord. And it's the shame that you feel when you pull up to a drive-through window. Okay, now if you have a Honda Accord, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you pull up to that drive-through window and you're like this little kid looking up to your parents. Right, and the drive-through attendant's just looking down with all of this, ego and like, what are you doing here, little boy? Kind of stuff, right? Right, I just remember pulling up, and if you know what I'm talking about, and there's this moment where you make your order, and then there's that moment where you got to pay. You got to pay. Now, if you're in a big truck or an SUV, it's easy. Man, you're throwing money out the window. When you're in a little Honda Accord, it's a very nerve-wracking thing, and I'll tell you why. Because if you drop your money or credit card in between the car and the drive-through window, it's in the great abyss. Like, there's just no coming back from that. And I've done that before, where you reach out and you drop it, and then the attendant, they look at you with these judgmental eyes. How dare you drop it? I'm like, you do this for a living. This is my first time today. And if you've ever dropped money, there's this moment, because you can't open your door. Like, it's not going anywhere, so you're locked in there. You've got to drive forward 15 feet, put it in park, get out, do the walk of shame back. By that time, the next car is already pulled up. You've got to go in between their car and pull out your money. It's this horrible, horrible thing. And so when you drive a Honda Accord, boy, you learn to focus. You learn that when it's, $3.25, you're going, I got $3.25. And all you do is you focus on making sure that attendant has your money or credit card. And you don't care what the car behind you is doing. You don't care that your kid's screaming in the back. You don't care. All you do is you're reaching out and you're focusing, you're stretching toward to make sure it works. And that's all you're focusing on. It's the same language Paul is using. He goes, I'm reaching out, I'm stretching forward what's next in my life, what God is calling me to do. In this 2018, my prayer for you is that you would begin to reach and stretch out for what God is calling you to do next. And so the question you really have to answer for yourself, ask and answer for yourself, is what is God calling you to do next? Like what's next in your life for 2018? You go, I'm looking forward to 2018. Great. What aspect of it? Well, all of it. Well, let's narrow it down a little bit more. What are these things that God is calling you to do? And a simple suggestion I would be to take Paul, maybe you just try, Lord, I want to gain Christ in every area of my life. I want to treat my spouse the way Jesus would treat him. I want to treat my kids the way Jesus would treat them. I want to treat my parents the way Jesus would treat them. I want to be a neighbor the way Jesus would be a neighbor. I want to be a coworker the way Jesus would be a coworker. I want to gain Christ in every area of my life. And so this is what I'm reaching for. And then at the end of 2018, if it all goes kaput, but you gain Christ, then you gain everything. Like if you gain Christ, when I'm reaching out, I'm stretching, I'm focusing on that one thing, then come what may in 2018, but at the end, I've gained Christ in my life, then you've reached your goals, you've stretched out. And so the question is, what are you trying to do in 2018? What is next for you? What is that thing that you're reaching out, that you're stretching toward? And you're going, well, I don't really know. Then maybe it's a time that this afternoon or this week you go, Lord, what is that thing in my life that I need to do? You may call it resolutions, you may call it goals. I would just say, what is that thing you're trying to reach out and stretch toward in 2018 that God is calling you to do? Do you remember the old movie Alice in Wonderland and that scene there with Alice and the Cheshire Cat? Remember that? And I'll paraphrase it, but this one scene, it's great theologian that Cheshire Cat was, and they're there, and Alice goes, which way do I go? Which way do I go? Do you remember that? And the Cheshire Cat goes, well, where are you trying to get to? And Alice goes, I don't know. And the Cheshire Cat goes, well, in any way we'll get you there. And I was like this moment, you're like, tweet that, whatever you got to do. And brilliant. Well, what am I trying to do? I don't know. You've got to get alone with the Lord and go, what in my heart of hearts am I trying to do? What am I trying to reach out toward? He goes, this one thing, and it's very, very simple. I forget the past, meaning I don't forget it mentally, but I neglect and I work through it. Now, some of you, you might need to sit down with a great Christian counselor to work through some things in your past. That may be one way that you go, you know what? It's got a grip on my life. I've got anxiety. I've got old wounds that have yet to heal. Maybe you sit down with a great Christian counselor, and great Christian counselors have unbelievably practical tools that can help you walk through some things in your past. Maybe it's not hanging on to the good old days and realizing the good old days weren't as good as you thought they were. You need to know that you're living in what you're going to call the good old days. Like today is the good old day. You're going to go, man, 20 years ago, do you remember that when Georgia won the national championship? That was awesome. It was the good old days. It's the best sermon I ever heard. Why? Because he wore black and red. That's why. I don't know. Those are the good old days. Right, you realize the good old days, they were good, but they don't define, they aren't the best day. The best days are not behind you. If you're still alive and well, the good old days are still in front of you. In fact, why don't you do me a favor? I want you right now, I want you to check your pulse just for a second. I want you to go ahead and feel that pulse. Hang on. There it is, guy. Okay. A little nervous there for a second. All right. You feel that pulse. If your pulse is still beating, God still has a plan for your life. If you can still feel it, then God's not through with you. I mean, Paul would say this earlier in Philippians. He goes, God who began a good work in me will be faithful to complete it on the day when Christ Jesus returns. So if you ever get this thought in your mind going, well, my best days are behind me, is God through with me? Just do this. Nope. He's not. How do you know? Well, because my pulse is still beating. Yeah, but no. This is still beating. As long as this is still working, God still can use me. My best days are still ahead of me. I still have an opportunity to gain more of Christ in my life. Paul goes, just this one thing, forget the past and look forward to the future. Now, how many of you were given a penny when you came in, just a penny? Okay, you got a penny, good. We were probably the very first church to ever give you money as you came in, so congratulations on that. Don't forget to tithe on it when you leave, all right? I wanted to give you all silver dollars, but then I did the math. I was like, yeah, penny will work. A penny will be just fine. Why a penny? Because it's just this one thing that Paul focused on. One thing, 1 cent, 1 penny, one thing. And so I want to give you a very simple penny prayer, one thing to focus on this year. And the penny prayer goes something like this. Jesus, I can't change or relive yesterday, but I look forward to what you're going to do today. Jesus, I can't change the bad things. I can't relive the awesome things, but I look forward to what you're going to do today. And you take this penny. I also gave you this penny because I'm quite confident most of you will lose it between now and the car ride home. But you can find another penny. You take a penny and you put it on your nightstand. You put it where you brush your teeth. You put it in your car, somewhere where you see it every morning. When you wake up and your feet hit the ground, you're drinking your first cup of coffee, you see that penny and go, Jesus, I can't change or relive yesterday, but I look forward to what you're going to do today. It was what it was, but it's not going to control what it could be. Yesterday was awesome. Yesterday was awful. I can't change it. I can't relive it. But Jesus, I'm excited about what you're going to do today. And as long as I can, still feel that, have a pulse, then there's something God is going to do in my life, with my life, for other people. Your best days as a Jesus follower are ahead of you. Good days in the past. Bad days in the past. But it was what it was. So God, I'm trusting that you're calling me to do something new today. Can't change it, can't relive it, but I'm going to follow you and thank you for what you're doing in my life today. How incredible could your 2018 be? If at the end of 2018 you looked at that penny and go, man, this was my prayer for 2018. And you look back over 2018, getting ready to roll into 2019, and maybe 2018 was fantastic, maybe it wasn't, but oh my goodness, you gained Christ. You gained him in so many different areas of your life, in your relationships, in your marriage, in your thought life, in the way you treat other people. It was what it was, but God, I know you're calling me to something great, and as long as I have a pulse, my best days are still ahead of me. Now, what does it look like to live a life like this? Like, what does it look like to really believe that I'm going to forget the past? I'm going to look forward to, what does a person who really lives a life like that, what do they say at the end of their life? What do they come to the end of their life, and what is it all about? And Paul lived his life this way. And at the end of his life, he comes to a conclusion about what he had talked about. And his conclusion is in 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 6. It's the last letter he would write that we'd have in the New Testament. And remember, in Philippians, he says, I forget the past and look forward to the future. And he goes, I press on to win the race. Look at verse 6. He says, as for me, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. The time of my death is near. I have fought the good fight, and I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. And now the prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the day of his return. And the prize is not just for me, but for all who eagerly look forward to his appearing. And I love the language. He goes, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. Now, this is just me personally. This is just Chris talking to you. Man, I want to say that. Whenever God takes me from this earth, I don't know how long he gives me, but I want to come to the end going, I've given it all. I'm poured out and I'm spent. I want to say I fought the good fight and I finished the race and I've remained faithful. Because here's the cool thing, and here's the difference between Christians and non-Christians. See, this principle of forgetting the past and looking forward to the future works and will get you to the end of the race. But for non-Christians, that's where it stops. For Christians, that's just the beginning. The end of the race, which is this life, is just the beginning, and it's the crown of righteousness. So it works. It's 60, 70, 80, 90, maybe 100 years we have on this earth. But for Christians, that's just a blip on the screen. So we're not playing the short game called life. It's the long game called eternity. And so you forget the past and move forward and you remain faithful. Yes, it works on this earth, but it's for the crown of righteousness that awaits us for eternity. And that's what Paul says. I fought the good fight and I finished the race. And it was written about 4 or 5 years after Philippians was written. And most people think that he died at the hands of Nero as a martyr. Fought the good fight, finished the race, remained faithful. And he goes, now it's starting to get good. Now the crown of righteousness awaits me. This is what I've been waiting for. However long we're on this earth, forget the past and moving forward. Yep, my best days. At the end of life, man, my life has been poured out. I got nothing left in the tank. And now I'm excited because this is where the eternity part starts. This is where the crown of righteousness awaits. And that's the difference. For non-Christians, you get to the end of the race, boy, you move forward another year and another decade, great. But at the end of the race for Christians, it's just the beginning, and that's where the good stuff happens. That's where eternity comes into place. This one thing. This one simple prayer. Jesus, I cannot change or relive yesterday, but look forward to what you're going to do today. And at the end of my life, and my hope is for you at the end of your life, that you can say, I fought the good fight. I finished the race. I've remained faithful. I'm poured out. I've got nothing left in the tank. And now the crown of righteousness awaits me. Don't let what 2017 was control what your life could be. Fight the good fight. Remain faithful. And receive the crown of righteousness in heaven. Let me pray for us. With every head bowed and every eye closed, if you are a follower of Jesus, man, maybe some area in your life that you need to gain Christ in this year. Right, just that one area. Or maybe there's that one thing that's been holding you back. Successes or failures in your past. And you say, Jesus, it was what it was. I can't change it. I can't relive it. But Jesus, I'm trusting and I'm excited about what you're going to do today and the next day. And I'm trusting that my best days are still ahead of me. Why? Because I still have a pulse. You're still king of the universe. And I'm following you until I receive the crown of righteousness in heaven. And if you're here and you're not a Christian, you're the skeptic, you're agnostic, whatever it is that you are, you need to understand that there is hope after this life. That there is something more than when your pulse stops. And that's something more, that crown of righteousness can be experienced when you make Jesus your Savior and King of your life. I mean, you call upon Him as Lord. And you have a relationship with the God of the universe because of His Son, Jesus Christ. And if you've never done that, there is no better way to start 2018 than to do that right now. With every head bowed and every eye closed, you can just say something like this, but mean it from the depths of your heart. Just say, today, Jesus, I ask you to be my Savior and the King of my life. Lord, fill me with your Spirit and help me to follow you all the days of my life. Forgive me for my sins, Lord. Thank you for the cross, for the empty tomb, for my salvation. Father, I pray for all of us. For some of us, 2017 was a banner year. For some of us, 2017 was a year we want to forget. But Lord, my prayer for all of us is that we don't focus on that, Lord, that we move forward in you and what you're calling us to do and who you're calling us to be. And that we'd all come to the end of our lives and say, we fought the good fight. We finished the race. We remain faithful. And we're looking forward to that crown of righteousness that awaits us. We love you, Jesus, and ask these things in your name. Amen.